Hi, everybody. Welcome to All Things Metaphysical podcast with Kellie and Gail. And of course, I am the Gail part.
And that makes me the Kelly part.
And this is episode 29. We missed last week, so we hope that you are able to join us this week. We both needed to manage, I guess I should say, all the energy that's going around. No matter how much you know, it still affects you.
And sometimes the more you know, the more it affects you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, needed
So,
a break.
so we needed to take, well, Kellie needed to get healthier.
Yeah.
And I was holding down the fort as one of my coworkers was away, and it was just unbelievable stress all week last week. And I thought this week with her back was going to get better, but no, it seems even more stressful this week than it did last week. And as March continues, I think it's going to get more and more stressful. And I
Yeah.
don't think we're going to break free until mid-April.
Yeah. There's a lot of really heavy energy. Everyone is upset or stressed or angry or something. So we're all feeling it. I do, though, agree it's going to break mid April, I think.
And crying. Like,
Yes.
I'm not one to cry a lot, but, like, I'll call it a meltdown. I had a meltdown at work at towards the end of the day, and I called one of my coworkers, and I couldn't even get the words out. I was crying because
Yeah.
not only talking to all the people I work with, but then all the people at the insurance companies who are getting yelled at by people. When I get them at the end of the day, I feel all that energy, and I don't know what to do with it anymore. I mean, I can only transmute so much every day.
And it seems like there's more and more and more coming in to be transmuted.
Mhm.
It's just, I I found myself on the floor with my hands trying to push it down into the earth because I could do nothing else at that point. And I have a really hard time getting up off the floor. So it was a really intense feeling for me to do that to begin with.
Yeah, it's just, every week I'm like, oh, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. And even my boss said to me, we have someone new starting. Just make it through this week. I said, you've said this to me every week since January.
Yeah,
When is it actually going to get better?
right. Yeah,
So,
there it's it's a lot of garbage right now.
uh-huh. So it's interesting because here I am helping all these people because I'm in a very fortunate position where a lot of people come to me, just like a lot of people come to you. And I'm
Mhm.
really good at helping other people manage things and help with things. Not always the best, just like any other human being, always doing it for myself.
Right. And one of our listeners was talking about somebody being rude. Haven't you found that a lot lately? People are just venomous. I had just a simple phone call that I needed to make, and it was just you would have thought I'd asked them to murder their entire family the way they treated me on the phone. I'm like, wow, you're really good at this customer service stuff. But
You
yeah,
know,
the
and
energy.
I like to make myself vulnerable and I like to be transparent. And so, I reached out to Kelly. It was last week? No, it
Yeah,
was yesterday. I think whatever it was.
whatever
It
it
was
was.
last week and yesterday.
Yeah.
And I just said, I'm so angry and I know what I'm capable of doing. And it's like everything in my power, I tried really hard not to do any harm. And so we've talked about this before about good versus evil. And like the darkness, I felt like they were trying to get me to do
Yeah.
something to bring karma to me so I couldn't continue to move forward. And I know that sounds bananas.
No, it makes perfect sense. It depends entirely on who you're speaking to, but to me, it makes perfect sense. It's just really, it's kind of like being tempted. It's
Mhm.
you're going to be pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and it's like, okay, now are you going to lash out? What are you going to do? What are you going to? And it's really, it's a sick game that the dark side plays.
Mhm.
But that is what is going on right now.
Thank you, listener. She said not at all bananas. Thank you for all who are listening and watching us right now. Again, if you have questions, please post them in the comments section and we will answer them. But I find that I like to be an example because everyone sometimes puts me on this pedestal for things that I know and what I'm
Right.
capable of doing. And that sometimes, and then I always get, well, if you're doing this and you can't handle this, how am I ever supposed to be able to?
Right.
And, it's just really interesting because I think the most important thing is that we're still all human, regardless of what I know, regardless of how connected I am to the cosmos, regardless of how much information I get, I'm still here as a human being to learn lessons just like other people.
Right. Right.
So, I'm just being transparent.
Yeah, and I think what I've been told by guides anyway is that anything that we have not completely healed, and
Mhm,
it doesn't have to be just from this lifetime, it can be previous lives, it can be previous planets, whatever it is. Um, if it hasn't been completely healed, it's coming forward at this time
mhm,
to be healed completely. And I think that's because there are so many of us now that are so sensitive.
mhm,
It's really hard on us because we really are torn between trying to be an example and hold it together
mhm.
and being completely human and 100% vulnerable and, excuse me while I have a meltdown. It's just a balancing act I think we're going through.
So one of the comments is I always say among friends and husband, it's a good thing when we all don't break down, go crazy at the same time. We all have to take turns.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's very important. And, I think the biggest thing for anybody is to be authentic
yeah,
and to put yourself out there, even when you're scared, even when your voice shakes, even when you don't want to say the things that you need to say, because oftentimes that's when you need to say them the most.
right. And I know um, personally,
Hmm.
it's been really, I've had a really difficult time coming back to these conversations and
Hmm.
to doing these kinds of this. Really, it's a teaching experience, is what we're doing because of what happened to me in the past.
Hmm.
And there's just times when no matter how difficult it is, like you're saying, even if your voice shakes, it's important to someone else out there that they hear what you have to say. And I really do believe that what we go through is a roadmap for people coming up behind us. So it's very important.
Yeah, I completely agree. You are welcome for me being vulnerable. It's something that I've gotten much better at as I've gotten
Yeah.
older. So, like when I reached out the other day to my coworker, even to you, crying, that is something I would have never done in the past.
Yeah.
And we all need support. We all need to have people we can turn to. And we all have a tribe. It's important to use that tribe because sometimes we're going to be the giver and sometimes we're going to be the taker, but it's about balance.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's important to find your tribe.
Mhm.
For the majority of my life, the people that were around me, it was sort of a always what can I do for them?
Mhm.
It was never what someone could do for me. It was always about me giving and being a naturally giving person. They were just taking, 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 taking. So I would hear these things
Mhm.
about your tribe and I would go, yeah, right. I'm sure on some plane of existence that happens, but not here. And then when I started finding my tribe, I
Mhm.
was like, oh, this is what it's like.
Mhm.
And it really is such a wonderful thing to have people that are on your side that you have that give and take with. And I think it's really important for people watching who maybe don't have that
Mhm.
to know that it does exist. And you just have to be determined to
Mhm.
find your tribe. It took me well into my 50s to find my tribe, and I'm still finding members all the time.
Mhm.
It is a real thing. Don't give up.
Yeah, we were talking before the show and you had a 10-year-old ask a question. Do you want to share that question with all of us?
The base of his question, it was a long conversation. It was quite humorous, but his question was, why do people feel the need to belong or to join a group
Mhm.
or to do what everyone else is doing. And he was really sincere
Mhm.
in his question. And it really touched my heart because he was so, well, I don't know if I want to even be around these people. I don't know what that group is about. I don't know if I should have that group,
Mhm.
be a part of my existence is the word he used.
Mhm.
And I was so impressed with this child that was 10 and asking these questions. But I think even into adulthood, I was still asking those questions. So, it just the desire to be a member, the
Mhm.
desire to feel like you belonged, even if you don't belong.
Mhm.
It's that sense of being a part of something. And for this kid to have those questions at 10, it's impressive to
Mhm.
me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just begs to that we all want to feel connected at times, and there's times when we don't want to feel connected. Sometimes the best thing for yourself is to just be quiet and go within and not have all that noise around you. But sometimes having those people, it's human nature to want to connect, to want to feel a part of, to want to feel like you belong.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The thing about different groups, though, is if you're feeling that you want to belong to something, be
Mhm.
true to your heart and be true to who you are. Because I know personally, I've gone out and joined all sorts of groups that I had no interest in, didn't care about it, didn't really want to go to meetings. So be choosy when you're doing that.
Well, I think it comes down to what resonates with you.
Yeah, yeah,
What brings your soul joy? What makes you happy? And we are not used to making decisions that way.
yeah.
In our society and our culture, we're wired to, well, what do I need to do? I mean, how do I fit in? How do I make this happen? How
Right.
do I get this? As opposed to when you really go within, what do you really need? For me, it's crystals. I always need crystals.
Yeah, crystals. I have a lot of crystals, candles. Mostly for me, it seems lately to be animals again.
Yes,
I
you just are collecting animals.
It's ebb and flow. But you know what I noticed? I have some extra animals here, and they've been kind of destructive extra animals. But what I have noticed is extra animals always appear in my life when I am overwhelmed and stressed and have lost my sense of humor completely, and I do not know which way to turn. Poof, three goats. It's just how does that happen? But it is what happens with me.
Mhm.
So moving forward, I have to figure out how to not get stressed and overwhelmed because I don't want any more.
And like I said, I just collect crystals. I probably have enough crystals to open my own crystal store now.
Yeah. Oh, I know I do. Yeah.
But they love to talk to me and they love to share their stories. And they'll trick me and say, okay, you can buy this and then you're going to give it as a gift. And then I get it home and they're like, no.
No, it's yours. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just
That
interesting.
and that's a lot of people around here are rock hounds because we have such an amazing geology here.
Mhm.
Um, I go out, there are particular areas that people who know where they are like to go.
Mhm.
And I brought home a big chunk of quartz crystal the other day. And I'm driving in my driveway and I literally hear something in my driveway. There's rocks in my driveway.
Mhm.
And it seems like when they put in the driveway and they graveled it, they
Mhm.
left pieces of quartz crystal in it.
Mhm.
And the giant chunk was singing to the quartz crystals in my garage or on my driveway. And
Mhm.
I pulled into the garage and I still felt it. It was like this high pitched, really amazing tone.
Mhm.
And I was like in my car for like a long time,
Mhm.
just listening. But it is interesting. I found that really fascinating. And what I could figure out is that the quartz in my driveway probably came from the area where the bigger quartz was. We have quartz crystals in hanging
Well,
off the sides of caves up in the mountains. It's very
I
cool.
also feel like the quartz crystal and the ones in your driveway were singing to for the vibration for healing.
Yeah, there it was. It was an audible, really amazing, vibrating tone. And, I went out later
Mhm.
and sat in my car to see if I could recapture it. No, it was one and done.
Mhm.
But my thinking as I came in the house was, there's literally nobody I can tell about this that will not think I'm crazy. And then I thought, oh, wait, I can tell Gail.
I'll
And now she's
understand.
calling me.
And we're telling all of whoever's watching.
Right. But that goes back to having your tribe too. Because when you have someone that you can trust with those kinds of things,
Mhm.
that's really important, especially with what we're going through lately.
We all need support.
Yep.
So, those of you who are watching us, do you have any questions for us today? Anything you want us to talk about or answer? Please put it in the comments section and we will be happy to answer that. The other thing besides crystals that I collect is apparently decks of oracle cards. And then everyone says, well, when are you making your own deck? And I'm just like, I'll get around to it eventually.
It'll happen.
When it's meant to happen, and if it's meant to happen, it'll happen. I mean, I have so many of my mandalas out in the world. So, especially, I've drawn several for the Ukraine right now. So, one of our viewers just said, I had a quartz point tell me he had been waiting for me. He came above ground and was waiting for me to find him. I call him Bud, buried under dirt.
I love that.
I've been to crystal stores, but there's a really funny story. When I went to my first expo, there was this yellow sphere, and I couldn't put it down, but I didn't like have much money left because it was at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And the person who owned the booth is like, that sphere is supposed to go home with you. She's like, this is what it costs. How much money do you have? She's like, I'll give it to you for that because it is really supposed, and that's what started me really then collecting crystals.
Right.
That was like the first one I bought as an adult.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember when I was younger, I was on a cruise with my parents and we were in the Caribbean. And I bought this necklace and I never thought anything about it. And then when I started collecting crystals, I'm like, I'm going to go find that necklace because I still had it. What was it? Larimar. That was the first stone I ever bought.
Yeah.
So one of our viewers wants to know if she can ask a personal question. I would say you can ask as long as you're okay with whoever sees this
Right. Yeah.
video. I won't mention your name, but that you're okay with them seeing the answer. So
Right.
if that's okay, you can ask your question. If we can answer it, we will. So yeah, crystals. Yeah. Do you have a favorite crystal?
Um, Not really. It depends on the day.
Okay.
Um, Today it was rose quartz.
Okay.
Yesterday it was quartz, maybe something else
I have
tomorrow.
a favorite crystal no matter what.
What is it?
Labradorite.
I like labradorite too. Also like amethyst a lot. I'm quite fond of amethyst.
And I love how neither one of us wants to answer the question. Okay, so I'm just going to be transparent. The first thing that came to my mind was no.
No.
And sometimes it's a timing thing, and that might just be no for right now. It may change, but it's pretty resounding no.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I love how when we, and I think this is such human nature, is like when someone asks you a question and you don't want to answer it, you just keep like staring at it going,
Yeah.
yeah, Smoky Quartz is really cool as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I like smoky quartz. I had a thing come up in a reading, and I've talked about something similar in the past, but sometimes when you're doing a reading,
Mhm.
and this is for people who are having the reading done too, when I don't like to know any information going into, I like to go into it cold. And sometimes you'll get a question and all the angels and guides and God himself is going, no. And it's so overwhelming
Mhm.
that I have to go, let's see. How am I going to answer this without breaking someone's heart? Um, but yeah, it's sometimes we want things so badly,
Mhm.
and we go and get readings to have that confirmation that we're looking for, not the answer that we should have. But yeah, interesting how that
Yes,
works.
I guess we should share that because I had a reading over the weekend. I don't get a lot of readings anymore because there aren't a lot of people who, one, I think can read me based on where my energy is. And I don't mean that in an egotistical way, it's just a vibrational thing. And a lot of times it expos the vibration isn't high enough to get there. And then she gave me some information which was kind of blatantly not true.
Yeah, I've had that.
And it's just like, when you're getting a reading, how do you deal with that? Like, I always, when I'm giving readings, I don't always, but most of the time, I'll say, this is what's coming through right now
Right.
for you. I don't know if this resonates with you. I don't know if it's true for you, but this is what they're telling me right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes there are things that they'll tell me, I know the answer, I have the answer, but it's not right for them to have the answer. And I'm
Mhm.
like, well, then don't give it to me. It's, but it's yeah, way back when I talked about the black horse, sometimes people who are very, very good
Mhm.
doing readings, I've had some amazing readings done, and this woman was talking to me about something dark that was weighing on me, and it was all about strength and freedom, and I'm thinking, are you seeing a black horse?
Mhm.
She's like, well, yes. I literally have a black horse who is dying, and what she was seeing was that he was very sick,
Mhm.
and I was actually going to put him down the next morning. But that's what she was seeing, and she was reading into this
Mhm.
vision of a black horse. And sometimes a black horse is just a black horse. And
Mhm.
I had a reading the other day where I kept seeing a fuzzy black dog, and I'm like, okay, they're showing me a fuzzy black dog, and he has a intestinal blockage. Is this your dog? And she said, oh my God, he's at the vet. I just took him this morning. So
Mhm.
that was literally a dog. It wasn't anything about the color black or, loyalty or anything like that that dogs represent. So readings are sometimes really funny how we get visions. I see visions
Yeah.
or hear voices, but I know mediums who go into a trance. I
Uh-huh.
have a friend that does readings fully in a trance,
Mhm.
and I don't do that. I probably could, but why?
I'll never forget the first kind of reading I had. I was taking the opening to intuition course, and the helper was opening Akashic records for everybody. And, with the Akashic records, which I can read, and I'm usually in most of the time anyway, they won't give you any information that will affect your free will.
Right.
So I asked, of course, being who I am, and was so skeptical. I'm like, so was I killed by a guillotine in the French Revolution? And did I die in a gas chamber? And they're like, so she looks at me and she said, yes. She's like, I can't believe they answered those questions. They never answer those kinds of questions. She's like, and then they said, because that's the only way you're going to believe anything else that they tell you is that
Right.
they validated that for you. And so now you'll be a little bit more open to seeing. And it's funny because as she was reading my records, I was getting all these visions and downloads and stuff like that. And I didn't think much about it. And I kept seeing like being underwater and gates, and my hands were phosphorus and glowed in the dark and blah, blah, blah. And like 20 years later, I'm like, oh my God, I finally realized that, it was, depending on what your belief system is, like Atlantis and how to get in and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, wow, it only took me 20 years to figure that out.
Yeah, and there's I had visions when I was a kid
Mhm,
about a house, and there were mountains, and there was some tall, thin, blonde guy,
mm,
and there were some dogs, and I had that I I could see my feet walking through the house on what looked to me like concrete floors.
mhm.
Well, I had forgotten that or suppressed it or whatever. And then one day in 2005, when this house that my ex and I built was finished, it all came flooding back in. And I had a vision of my house, of him being in my life, of the dogs we had at that time, and the mountains. And it was just incredible. It's like, well, that took 42 years. What was that about?
It's just so interesting that, when you're open to receiving it, oftentimes you get a lot of messages and you get pieces to the puzzle, but you may not understand what the picture on the puzzle till
Right.
later on in life.
Yeah. It was a strange vision, though. And I would see it periodically, and it kind of faded away during my 30s. But then all of a sudden, boom, it was back, and I was in the middle of it. And it was like, whoa.
So I'm going to share this, and I think we've talked about this before. Is I have this vision of, I always had this vision as I got older, I had this kind of gray, flowy hair and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And that's when I took my place, like on the world stage and things like that. And I think it is so funny because everyone's comment to me who watches the video, Kelly, what's their comment to me?
Yeah, you've got great hair. Everyone loves your hair. And it's people have told me that I didn't even realize watched the show. It's
I
wow,
just
your
think,
friend has great hair. I'm like, that's what you got from the show. Well, you need to step it up if that's what you're getting.
so part of that vision is starting to, I got
Yep,
the long flowy clothes. I've had those for years, but now I have the gray hair and the longer gray hair.
yep.
So must be time.
Oh, it is. It is.
So, those of you who are watching us, have any other questions or topics that you want us to cover today? We are open to taking some questions. At some point, big orb just flew around my head
Yeah,
there was
another
another one that just went by. Everyone wants to know what I do, that there's all these orbs flying around my head when I'm live doing things. And I'm just like, it's just my spirit helpers helping me. They just want to be seen too. And
Yep.
so they're making themselves visible. And everyone laughs when they like dive bomb my head because that's always the funniest.
Yeah.
Well, there's another one. So, those of you who are watching the videos, it's interesting to see sometimes what I'm talking about when the orbs appear because
Right.
they're not constant. So, it's interesting. You'll start to see a pattern about what I'm talking about as the orbs come more. There's another one, more frequently. There's been feathers that have dropped.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's just been really interesting. So
Yep.
everyone's like, "How do I get that?" I'm like, "I don't even know how I'm getting that, so I can't tell you how you get it." But
One
it is
thing, it is fun and it's fun to watch. Um, for that reason alone, everybody watching should share the show.
fun. Mhm.
Just, come see the orbs. Maybe that should be our new tagline.
And get your friends to subscribe to our YouTube channel too,
Yes.
that would be great. So,
Yeah.
we're trying to build it just to be transparent so that we can do some other things as well. We have a lot of things on our agenda that we want to accomplish, but the thing that we were predominantly interested in was the show and really just giving people a space
Yep.
to talk about things that most people in our society won't talk about.
Right. Exactly. So people keep telling me how important the show is to them. So if it's really important, please share the show, subscribe, have everybody else subscribe. It really will let us do some of the bigger things that we want to do.
which actually all involve helping all of you.
Right.
That's
And
what we want to do things on a little bit different scale and in some different ways as well. So we're working on planning some of those things as well. Because to be honest, I don't really want to write another book.
yeah, I'm
I've
done.
written about 8. I'm kind of done.
Yeah, I've written my share, so I'm stepping down. Let somebody else write books for a while. Yeah.
Although, I was thinking about it the other day, and most of my books have really fun titles.
Hmm. Yeah, you're good with titles.
So, you know, although I think there's probably one more book because there's the I don't know how I know, I just know. I still know what I know. And I feel like there's a third one eventually going to be to that series. I just don't know what it is yet.
Sometimes I don't want to know what I know.
Or sometimes I want to forget what I know. Or maybe I'll title it the title I've always wanted to title a book is My Life is a Bad Science Fiction Movie.
I really, yeah, that's my, yeah.
Like if someone ever does a story of my life or something, that's what I want the title of the movie to be. My Life is a Bad Science Fiction Movie.
Yeah, when my grandmother was alive, she used to write in her early age, and that's where I get it from. But she told me one time, I was asking her, would you write down your stories? Because I would like to,
Mhm.
know everything. I'm a huge history buff. I
Mhm.
love family history, world history, whatever history. And she said, well, I thought about writing a book one day, but no. And I said, well, what would you have called it? And she said, well, I was calling it When the Cat Barfs, Just Pick It Up. Wow.
That's a
Oh,
title.
and she didn't even have a cat at the time. So at some point, she must have had a really interesting cat.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah. It just, and the fact that it came out of my grandmother's mouth was just really funny because she was not given to such things.
I know sometimes comments like that are even funnier when you put them in the context of who they're coming out from, which
Yep.
is really funny because I don't usually swear that often anymore. I mean, I'm usually pretty good about not swearing that often, but every other word out of my mouth the last like 3 days has started with F.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm just like,
Oh,
that's so not like me.
yeah. I had a major meltdown last week too. I told you
Yeah.
about it. It was just, I think it was just, we had had just enough and
Mhm.
it was time for it to stop. And sometimes that F word does relieve a lot of tension.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to say it. There's nothing quite like that word.
Yep. Yep.
Mhm. So, any other questions that those of you who are watching us have? And thank you all for tuning in today. Greatly appreciated as always.
Somebody earlier on mentioned something about deja vu,
Mhm.
and I found that that is happening to more and more and more people lately. It's sort of a piece of the spiritual awakening we're all going through, but people who have told me in the past that they didn't believe in anything
Mhm.
um, have called me in the last couple of weeks saying, I'm kind of having those weird feelings where I'm thinking about something and it happens, or somebody had a dream and it happened like 2 days later. So that's all part of it. It's all a big piece of it.
My friends and people I know get annoyed with me because they're like, how did you know I was just thinking about you? Really? We have to go over this again?
Yeah.
I have a funny story with that. I have a friend of mine who had a hip replacement. She's since transitioned to the other side. And I was so exhausted that day. It was a Sunday, and where she was in rehab was really close to my house. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm so exhausted. I'm sorry, I'm not going to come visit you today. I need to rest. And so, she knew how psychic I was, so she started telepathically communicating with me because she didn't like what they were having for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And so she wanted me to bring her something else for dinner. So finally I walked into her room at about 4:30. I'm like, "What do you want for dinner? Next time use the phone." She is just laughing. I'm like, "This is not funny."
Yeah.
She's like, "Yes, but it worked." I said, "Again, not funny."
But it is funny. Yeah. Yeah. I had a very, very close friend at one point in my life. He is also transitioned now, but we were in San Francisco and I was working in a recording studio.
Mm.
And I was busy in the control room, actually working in the recording studio. And I mentally thought, you know what? I really like chicken from that restaurant down the corner.
Mm.
And I'm thinking this. And about 20 minutes later, he buzzes the back door and he brought me exactly what I was telling people I wanted. And the guy who owned the studio just looked at me and he went, "Okay, stock market, talk to me." And I'm like, "No, it doesn't work that way."
Yeah, so it's just, again, if you're open, you're gonna start to have experiences like that. It's nothing to worry about, it's just about becoming stronger in your intuition because really
It's
we could all communicate telepathically. We just don't because it freaks too many people out. So,
You know, they tell me if you drink more water, you won't cough as much. That's a lie. Oh,
is there anything else you want to cover today or any topics, Kelly, that you want to bring up?
just share the show.
Oh,
Seriously.
did you see that orb fly by as you said that?
Yep.
The orbs would like you to share the show too.
Yep.
We're having a sense of humor about it today. So,
Yeah. We'd really like to build it. Seriously. So please do that.
so, well, I don't have anything else pressing to talk about today or any other questions that I'm dying to ask today.
I don't either.
All right,
It,
so this seems like a good point to end for
yeah.
today. And we will be back for our 30th episode on the 30th. So that ought to be fun energy.
Yep.
Everybody have a great night, and we will see you guys all again next week. Thanks for hanging out with us. Bye.
Bye.